Hello, welcome to MyStartup TV. I'm Major Sunil Shetty. We are here at the IKP 2025. The tagline this year is Beyond the Blueprint. With me is Sanjit Jhunianwala, who's the founder of Transleap Medtech. Sanjit, welcome to the show.
Sir, good to be talking to you today.
So, Sanjit, you're a young entrepreneur. Let's start by understanding your, own journey from being a student to an entrepreneur today. How did it start? What led you to choose entrepreneurship over a job?
Back in college, a group of friends and I, we decided that we had a problem statement that was put up by Batik at IIT Bombay. That we were looking at crutch palsy. That's a problem that happens when you use axillary crutches for a long time. And we started designing a device, started looking at the problem itself. And we came to an understanding that there has been research into this problem, but devices remain to be at the research stage. And there seemed to be a lot of insights that we could derive from those, from the papers that we read, which could be converted to something that could reach, instead of the 5 people that it would reach at the lab from a testing environment, to let's say 50 people to start with in our immediate vicinity, then next the 500 people. So we knew that we needed to move out of our the labs in which we have where we usually ran our design exercises, and start giving it out to people. So that same thing then ballooned into another thing that during COVID, intubation boxes were required. What those are essentially are aerosol containment for when a healthcare worker is intubating a patient, so that they can get airways cleared out, and you can have air go straight to the lungs from let's say a ventilator. There's a lot of fluids that get ejected from the pathway, which can impinge and infect the healthcare workers themselves. And in a decimated supply chain, making a containment box was a challenge. So what we started working on was pizza box style things that, like Lego or just just Tazos that you got in Cheetos. बचपन में अगर याद होंगे आपको तो वो उस तरह के पिज्जा बॉक्सेस we started sending out to these hospitals during the COVID, the first shutdown. So I then had the opportunity to work with a refinery as well. I got an understanding of the internals of what machinery and products work like after they've been designed, and how people use them in all sorts of ways, even in ways that aren't exactly planned for, because the field throws things at you. So at that point, I was looking at one of these devices that was coming up at a lab at IISc. Professor Anand Suresh, GK Anand Suresh, at the Entrepreneurial laboratory, was leading the effort. There were around 5 generations of students who had worked on this device, on this platform, where you could simplify, make safer, and a little more convenient a simple activity that is of sitting down and standing up, which you and I, on an average, perform anywhere near 20 to 60 times a day. And all sorts of problems from different, it could be age, disease, disorder, injury, pregnancy, they can impact your neuromusculoskeletal capability to perform this very basic function. So there was not only a problem that needed to be solved, but an opportunity in the sense that today you've got around 120 million people, 12 crore log hain aaj, jinki umr 60 se zyada hai in India alone. And this number will go up to 20 crores by 2030. So there is the need for our public space infrastructure to be functionalized instead of just having an accessibility symbol. Availability is not enough for accessibility, and this was an opportunity to build in that accessibility. And with this, I was actually able to get connected with the right team, the right founder, who I'm now a co-founder of, Manoj Kumar. And we have now been looking at this as trying to make a case out of it as something that is attractive, not just sustainable, as a business and not just a social enterprise, for which we've been looking at trying to verify which segments of the market respond to this faster for us to start taking this forward.
So
So,
that is how you're. I mean, just to summarize, the way you came into entrepreneurship was that you connected a few dots, and that led to the entrepreneurship. Could you summarize that?
right. So, I think when I was working with my professors back at IIT Guwahati, one thing that struck out with all of them, Professor S.K. Dwivedi, Subramani Kanagraj, Professor Sajjan Kapil, was that there was a need for whatever was getting developed in these labs, which we've got hundreds of GFTIs, government-funded technical institutes in India. There's a lot of intellectual capital, but at a similar rate at which that IP is getting produced, someone needs to take that, put that into the hands of a user, and get that ultimate test of a technology done. That is someone willing to pay for that technology? So that seemed to be an inevitable thing that I just wanted to, get into. So
In India, it's not easy for a student, a youngster, to go and tell his parents. At least now it's changing a bit. To say, I'll do business. I'm not going to. I'm going to get into entrepreneurship. Do a startup. Did you face any challenge like that? If you did, what? How did you overcome that?
I've been very fortunate that even though it was a risky venture, um, that risk was something that my family, my parents, um, were very aware of, but also respected the hustle in a way. And even my colleagues at the place that I was working at, some of them showed genuine concern that you're in a very secure job, almost a government job, security wala level wala job. So why would you? Are you okay? Why do you want to quit this and go, start up? So I did have a very supportive environment around me in terms of people um, making me aware of what the risks were. But at the same time, there was always that spirit or optimism that करो यार देखा जाएगा.
So, what is that gave you confidence? कि मुझे करना है और ये करेंगे. उसके अलावा, the other is, it's never a smooth journey. Entrepreneurship is never smooth. Did you ever have situation where you thought, कहीं गलती तो नहीं कर दिया? And that, how did you come through that particular space in case you went through it?
So with the kind of education that the country has invested in us, we as a public have invested in us by subsidizing the kind of education that I have been able to get. The question sometimes comes down to, अगर हम नहीं तो कौन? अगर हम गलती करके नहीं सीखें, if we don't do the mistakes to learn from in order to get those things working in the hands of people, who? That I think was what brought that first set of people that we were working on the crutch together, that something needs to be done. And that is what drives us today. The team that we have here at Transleap. And in extension, the kind of people that we've met in the context of this uh, conference itself, IKMC, we've been attending this for the last 4 years. And you meet other people who are hustling and trying to build things in the same way, but also you find these enablers who understand what is the perils of such a thing. Everyone from someone who can fund you, all the way to someone who can buy something from you. Having customers who understand that this is the first time you buy a product from a startup that is selling something that they're themselves selling for the first time. The customer, in that sense, is also an investor because they put that faith that in your tech, in your team, and that's how you build upon the traction. So, uh, being in this ecosystem is what helps you fight that sense of what if.
Talk about the challenges that you would have gone through once you started off. One is, the first part is to start. The second part is to, when you start building it up. As you said, taking the product to the market, finding the right customers, selling it to them, finding customers who are ready to buy your product or service. What were the challenges, and how did you overcome that?
So, one is the technology itself that you need to bring from a certain level to another. Uh, the first is the technical value of death. So, getting the kind of funding at the right time is important. Certain stages, it was we were very fortunate to get BIRAC and a few CSR partners who came in who were able to fund us. And subsequent stages, you do find challenges in getting that funding to materialize quickly, as quickly as it does in those early stages, because the magnitude of investment required, especially for something that is hardware, is much more in later stages. And more importantly, what I've realized recently is that it costs a lot more to build something that is more affordable. That is a learning that we've only that I at least personally have only recently come across when speaking to the kind of investors that we're speaking to, because it's one thing for you to uh, bring in the kind of grants that are available from the government. It's another thing to attract um investments from the market itself, and finding partners who are willing to place that amount of all due diligence aside. I think at some point it does come down to what they see in terms of the synergy in their thesis and the way the team and the tech works.
So, how's your talk about your relationship with IKP?
We have been for the longest time associated with IKP ever since the inception, because the company really, the technology really took off with the BIG grant for which IKP was our partner. And all of our, whether it was getting the initial product validated, getting an understanding of how do we build a better product from, let's say, something scrappy that we had come up with in the lab and with the vendors that we had around us, to the kind of facilities that we have at IKP Eden in Bangalore, as well as the kind of support that we've gotten from IKP Prime for our patenting and our IP. Um, they've been very patient with us in their helping us with now we've got patents that are granted, we've got PCTs approved, we've got a granted patent in this jurisdiction of Canada, because that's where we're looking to expand in North America from, as well as things like understanding who are the kind of mentors or collaborators that we could connect with. For example, we've had a long-term association with Dr. Vishwanathan, who's connected us with a lot of enablers in this ecosystem, as well as from a regulatory perspective, who do we speak to in order to figure out if this is a new class of devices with not as much of a direct predicate, how do we figure out where to place this? Because at some point it also does become about speaking and talking to the agencies themselves in order to understand where that lies, and working with them to understand what the regulatory framework around this should be. So it's a very holistic sort of support that we've been able to get from IKP, and they've been very patient with us.
Last question before I wind up. MyStartup TV, we are a media house for entrepreneurs and startups like yours, and we take their story across to the world. What do you think about the kind of work we are doing?
I think if there is a kahanikar who is able to bring in um, every story in the highest fidelity of what the facts are of that specific project, product, team, having figured its way out through the, however it has jumped across the different obstacles or hurdles that have come across, that sets up a, a, a catalog, a pothi, if you will, from which a younger still entrepreneur, younger in terms of their entrepreneurial journey, um, could refer to in order to figure out, in order to not solve problems that others have already solved. So it is important for these stories to go out and for people to be able to reach out and understand that, you know what, there are people. So even in those times where you feel, you know, kya kar raha hoon? So that you can reflect at someone else's work or at someone else's experience via your work.
Thank you, Sanjit. Thank you very much for being on the show, and we'll hope to see you again on some of our panel
Lovely
discussion.
talking to you.
Same here. Thank you.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.